Welcome back to the Tournament Center. I'm Randy Buehler here with Brian David Marshall. We've been watching this two-headed giant format. We're a couple of rounds into it now. One of the things I find the most interesting, especially with a new format that hasn't really been played at the Pro Tour before, is what cards have changed value. Like, everyone's done a ton of, 8-man booster drafts, one-on-one matches, but what are some of the cards that change? And so we put a rundown together of some of the cards that might just be a lot better than you realize they are. The most obvious case of this is Storm, right?
Everyone knows Empty the Warrens is great, but Volcanic Awakening is the perfect example of a card that goes from 0 to 60 in this format. It is stone cold unplayable in one-on-one draft. You just can't play the card. I've wanted to. I've talked about it. It seems so tantalizing, but that 6 is just brutal.
Right.
But
in this format, your teammate goes white man lion, white man lion, white man lion, and plays a bunch of spells and gets the storm count up. And so with two players playing spells on what counts as the same turn, all of a sudden every storm card is ridiculous, including Volcanic Awakening.
And the format's just a little bit slower. You have more time to set up your suspends and sync them up.
Sure, yeah. So what a lot of people will draft is Suspend and Storm. And if you get those two decks going, you can set up some ridiculous Storm turns. I think this deck was a lot better before Future Sight came out. It seems like Future Sight doesn't have as many Storm cards. There's one pack less of Time Spiral with these guys.
Haze of Rage, I think, is the card. It's a Storm card in the third pack. Is really exciting. Okay. A lot of people don't know about it. I think that's the kind of card that is really going to show in playtesting. I've seen a number of people steal wins out of nowhere. It's like from 30 with that card.
Wow.
And combined with, Empty the Warrens or something like that. Right. Grinning Ignis is also just a great Storm enabler in the third pack.
Oh, right.
I just watched Quentin and Rude draft, and they got Ignite Memories, Empty the Warrens out of their first pack.
Nice.
And then they got past an Ignite Memories going the other way in the second pack. So their deck is a perfect example of what a Storm deck should look like in this format. And if they go 4-0, it'll be because of the Storm mechanic.
There you go. Another thing that goes on in this format that's, one of the more straightforward insights is slivers. If we're both drafting sliver decks, we've both got slivers, our slivers power each other up. That's just better than in a single game where I can only have sort of one deck's worth of slivers and play it at any given time. What do you think of the sliver strategy? You've been a sliver man all your life,
I have a stuffed sliver on my bed. There's no lie there. I sleep on a dormant sliver. I think the sliver deck is great, and what's really interesting to me so far this weekend is nobody seems to be drafting the deck.
Really?
I've heard stories about someone getting past a Might Sliver.
Wow.
And then getting past another Might Sliver in the pack after that, and he's like, that's as clear a signal as I've ever gotten. And when it comes together, it's one of the best strategies. I think fear of poor slivers in the third pack.
Right.
There's not many good low curve slivers. There's a couple of 5-mana slivers that are all right. Homing sliver is really exciting, but overall, the deck it seems a little riskier.
It's still a deck that's in two-headed giant.
People seem to be avoiding it, but I think that's a mistake. I think that based on what I'm seeing from people's pick orders, that if you wanted to go into slivers,
it's there.
It's there to be had, and you're not going to have a lot of people fighting for you, and you could probably put together some pretty degenerate decks.
The thing I hear people talking about, instead of slivers, that's not the creature type they want. They want Thalids.
Right.
And so suddenly, the Thalid deck has become crazy, which, I guess that might be more of a Sprout Swarm thing than a Thalid thing, but than a two-headed giant thing.
Right, yes, absolutely. Sprout Swarm is considered one of the best common cards. It's absolute first pick quality. It's first pick quality in Singleton, but it's also first pick quality in two-headed giant. People are really excited to get it. Pallid Mysoderm's a card that's gone up a lot.
Okay.
It's gone up significantly in value because of the Sprout Swarm, because of the sort of semi-overrun effect.
Okay.
Remember, we saw Kenji with 4 Thalid Germinators in an earlier photo.
Yeah.
So
they won that pod.
Are you gonna argue with him?
No.
The guy's a constructed and limited master.
Now there's also some more subtle lessons. So what are some of the more subtle cards that maybe you don't realize right away are actually really good in this format?
Well, if Sprout Swarm's one of the top 2 picks in Future Sight, the other is Logic Knot.
Really?
Counter spells have gone up in value. Cancel is a regular first pick. Logic Knot is a regular first pick. Dismal Failure is a windmill slam.
Huh. Why is that? What is it about two-headed giant that makes counter spells so good?
Again, I can do something, and then you can protect it. I can, again, you can assign roles to players.
Right, so if we're playing one-on-one, you can't necessarily hold your permission. It takes a ton of turns before you can play a threat and defend it.
Sometimes when you get a tempo-based singles game where, we're just trading creatures and trading blows, there's not really time to protect the board, and sort of protect against this mythical great card that's going to come down and destroy you. It's like, I mean, you've had a counterspell in your hand, right? And you're like, do I play this 3-drop morph, or do I sit back on my cancel? Well, you can make that decision a little more easily.
In Two-Headed Giant, you say both.
You can play the morph. I can sit on my cancel. Late in the game, Logic Knot is just a ridiculous spell.
Sure.
That can counter just about anything. So counterspells have gone way up. Expect to see them play a big role on Sunday.
What else?
Well, there's a bunch of cards. We talked about Fool's Demise earlier. Right. Fool's Demise is a card not very playable in a single format.
But same kind of thing. I can play a threat. I can play the Fool's Demise. You can do whatever the trick is to kill the guy, and I seal the thing.
And we can decide what turn that's going to happen on together.
It's a much better in Two-Headed Giant than normal draft.
You have a Return to Dust lodged somewhere on your person. From yesterday.
We played this draft yesterday where the Return to Dust nailed. I had the 3/3 flyer, which is an enchantment creature, and we lost the green totem, Weather Seed totem.
Yeah, I'm looking for it, and I don't see it anywhere.
We lost that game. That was crazy.
And
so with one game matches, you've got to run a disenchant effect anyway.
It's really tough.
It's something that again, you have to run something, but then because there's two decks on the other side of the table, there's so many artifacts and so many enchantments that Return to Dust might be one of the most powerful disenchant effects you can get.
Yeah,
there's going to be multiple targets. So
anything
really
that says artifact or enchantment is also really exciting, right? You have that flexibility, and you can get, like you said, the flyer and the.
Well, I remember during the draft, I shipped the Return to Dust because we had the green seal. We had the
Seal of Primordium,
and it was like, I've got my disenchant effect. Return to Dust just better than I realized. That was interesting to see.
Mages of the Candelabra is a great example of a card that's why would you ever play that in one-on-one draft?
Nobody runs it.
Why would you ever play it? It's like, okay, I can tap these 4 lands to untap these 4 lands, and like you can, I guess, use it as a really expensive mana filter to get your double boost or whatever. You're not going to play it in singles.
That's a card.
In doubles, again, you can use it on my lands, which means that on turn 4. I can theoretically have access to 8 mana.
Down Cultist Bogart and Hellkite.
And just make these just kind of monstrous plays very early in the game. The cards again. This is an example of a card that if you haven't practiced the format, haven't gotten in tons and tons of drafts.
No, it's not obvious that it would be good at all.
And seeing that these cards are good, you're just going to pass that, and someone like Quentin Martin or Richard Hohen or someone who's just got a ton of practice in the format is just going to scoop that card up and be really excited.
So the flip side of this equation is, what are the cards that are bad? What cards go down in value here? And I think Benalish Cavalry, because I watch this format, and every time I play this format, you win with flyers, you win with evasion, you win with shadow guys, and nobody can ever attack on the ground because there's always just 2 teams worth of ground monsters just cluttering the thing up, and I can never get through. I'm always attacking with flyers. It seems like if that's what the game's about, the white weenie beatdown creatures, they're not that good in this format.
I think I agree with you on 40 life. But I mean, I'm watching like players like Helmut Sommersberger and David Brucker and some of the German players in the early drafts obviously have decided that at 30 life that this card is playable. And I've seen decks that are blue-white with a card like Frozen Ether, which is another card we haven't shown you, but is a tremendous Two-Headed Giant card.
So you still think Cavalry's good?
I'm suspending the 2/2 flyer on turn 1. I'm playing a Benalish Cavalry on turn 2. I'm playing a Coral Trickster face down on turn 3. Turn 4, I play my Frozen Ether. You're playing tapped lands. You're not dropping blockers, and I'm just beating in and fortifying or strength and numbering or.
Strength of numbers is ridiculous. Strength of numbers, I think, is that's the card. That's a flagship card for a card that gets better in this format. It's not that hard to have 8 attackers.
Yeah, that's
suddenly one gigantic trampler can end a game out of nowhere. So
I've seen more than one person fall out of their chair getting past the strength of numbers. There's actually been a number of injuries at this event from someone getting past like a late strength of numbers and just falling on the chair and hurting themselves.
So I think that's one of the interesting things that's going to play out over the course of day 1 and day 2 here is how does the ratio of beatdown versus control play out? Is it all about flyers? Do you just set up, stall the ground and fly over? There's enough sort of 1/4s and 1/5s and dream stalkers and things that it seems to me you can just blunt that weenie assault. But then again, you've got players that are like, all right, I'll take all of the Benalish Cavalries. I'll have my curve and I'll come out and we'll find out. Right?
I think it's
that's what we're going to find out.
I think it's a little bit like a constructed metagame. This format is a little more like constructed than any other limited format we've seen.
Agree.
because you have these archetypes and you have these decks and you have to get a read on your table and a read on the room. And hey, well, Silvers are, Silvers were good in Montreal this weekend, right? They weren't good before, so who knows?
All right, should be a fun day, should be a fun weekend. Brian and I will keep bringing you coverage as the pros tackle this new two-headed giant format, so stay tuned.
On Saturday, July 14th, Magic Game Day is coming to a store near you. And just by showing up, you can get exclusive cards, participate in exciting leagues and tournaments, and enter one-time contests and sweepstakes. For more information on game days in your area, go to www.wizards.com/magicgameday.